and welcome to this special show, Unstoppable Chennai, City Fights Back. We are here in fact at the Nehru Stadium in Chennai, and behind us you can see the centralized relief operations, the flood and relief operations going on here. Huge amount of community participation, students, volunteers, professionals, everyone coming in and pitching in to help the government distribute the relief that is arriving here. Today we are going to look at not just what has happened, but also at the challenges that lie ahead and what are the lessons that are going to be learned. We have with us a very eminent panel, the Municipal Commissioner of Chennai, Mr. Vikram Kapoor. I have Mr. Aditya Krishna, I have Mr. Mohan Raman, I have Mr. Kumar, Mr. Naveen, and also Surekha and Preeti and Niharika, all of who have in fact been part of this entire experience of Chennai, and what are the learnings that we have had from this. First of all, one of the best things perhaps that this rains and this deluge has brought about is the feeling that Chennai is capable of standing together and rising together, and this being one big example. In fact, students are pitching in, you have professionals coming in after work and pitching in.
Yeah, we knew about it all the time. I think the national media has just now woken to it. Chennai is one of the finest cities that you can come by. The people are great, they have always risen to the occasion, and we are proud to be Chennaiites.
They are also now asking you tough questions, whether this is really a natural freak disaster or whether there were problems in communication, whether there was the release of the waters that happened from the Chembrambakam lane reservoir, whether the adequate warnings were given and whether the releases in fact happened the way they should have, that could have averted this disaster.
See, in a natural disaster, one could never be adequately prepared. It's like an earthquake or a tsunami. I don't think anybody predicted this amount of rainfall, and it was not a one-time. If you step back, Chennai and its suburbs have been receiving rains for over a month. So much so that all the reservoirs around Chennai, and there are more than 1,000 of them, were all full. And every time it rained heavily, Chennai fought back, the people fought back, and we brought Chennai back to normalcy. But the last round, the rainfall was a historic high of over 30 centimeters, and some of the suburbs got more than 45 centimeters of rain. As a result of which, there was no other way except for the water to be released from the reservoirs, and naturally most of the lakes and reservoirs were surplusing. So all that amount of water along with the local precipitation was actually what did Chennai in.
What did Chennai in? Those questions are going to be asked time and again. Mr. Aditya Krishna, you're here as a proud Chennai resident, and you have several questions to ask as well of what happened. Your daughter was trapped in fact, and you had to ask for help to rescue her from certain areas. You don't really accept that this is a result of a natural freak disaster.
Yeah, the rain might have been natural, but I don't think the disaster was natural. I think it was more a man-made disaster because somebody released water from the dams. Now, when the water was released from the dams, we should have been prepared for it because obviously we knew it was being released. So the water was released on Tuesday night, and on Wednesday morning when everybody was, or homes were flooded, there was nobody to help except the police. The NDRF came on Thursday and the army came on Friday. Why couldn't we be better organized to get the relief efforts ahead so that we had NDRF and the army here on Wednesday? We could have saved a lot of anguish, a lot of trauma for a lot of people if we had done that. But I'm just speaking from the way I see it. You know, I'm sure the government has reasons, but I'd like to ask this of Mr. Kapoor.
See, I cannot be speaking for other agencies. The Chennai Corporation's role, of course, is to provide relief in times of distress. We coordinate the activities of various departments. Frankly, even we were not aware that this amount of water would cause so much of flooding. To what extent? Unfortunately, we do not have any past precedents or models to guide us as to in what way, which areas would be flooded to what extent. And therefore, what we did immediately as soon as we came to know that water was being released was to immediately evacuate thousands of people. In fact, more than 30,000 people were evacuated overnight by our officers and staff, along with the police, the fire and rescue services. And you rightly said, at that time there were no central forces available to us.
In fact, they had to wait for 2 days virtually, 1.5 days at least. All of them were rescued by the army after 2 days, but they were spending very tense days.
It's to the credit of government that there was at least some amount of advance notice, and a huge effort was mobilized in matter of hours, and overnight we could rescue so many people and save lives. There was not a single casualty because of this evacuation. We put them in nearly 200 relief centers. Nearly 62,000 people were evacuated ultimately, and government provided all the relief to them, food, water, and looked after them. So the response is what needs to be looked at, rather than trying to now go back and say who was responsible. I mean, these things could be discussed, at length at some future point of time. But right now, I think the focus rightfully is in providing relief and succor to the people.
Relief and succor to the people. Mr. Mohan Ram, you're an actor who's observed life with a lot of philosophical eye, I must say. And rehabilitation we are talking about, rescue efforts have been tremendous. Relief also has been good. So far, so good. Rehabilitation is going to be a big issue.
See, rescue the key people who are the people in uniform, whether it's police, fire services or army. They are the experts. NGOs, government, everything will have to work with them. For relief, government can do massive work like what's happening behind us, but there are several NGOs doing something similar and doing it. Now that has to be coordinated by the government so that all of us don't go and dump material in Saidapet. So somebody says, okay, you Lions Club, you go to Saidapet, Rotary, you go to Amjikare, somebody else go. So that probably the government can even now take up and see that relief done by individual NGOs or service organizations is coordinated and it is spread everywhere uniformly. As far as rehabilitation is concerned, that is going to be the long haul task for the corporation, the government, people like us, civil society, because you take a person who's running a small cell phone repair shop, his stock, everything has been washed out. Obviously stock, he's not going to insure it. What he probably needs today is a workbench, a pair of magnifying glasses and some electricity and a solder. Just get him going, because if we wait for the government to finish building his house, which is going to be resited somewhere, it is going to take quite some time. Nobody can build a house in a month. It's going to take several months.
We are talking about a natural disaster or rains that were unprecedented, but to a large extent, sir, Mr. Kumar, you in fact represent...
I have one point, excuse me. Mr. Kapoor said one thing very, very valid. He said nobody expected. I think in answer to the question raised by the gentleman on my right, they didn't release water knowing this is going to be the effect, because nobody has seen the effect of 30 or 50,000 cusecs of water rushing down the Adyar river, because several paths and passages which were there probably the last time they were released have now been closed with buildings.
But the government's own records, they are also been saying that the new part of Chennai has actually not been... You were showing us the other day, in fact, the maps that shows that the storm drains in those areas which have developed, which we have seen as in fact the islands of prosperity, technology, and that which represented brand Chennai, that area has not been the best in terms of storm drainage at all.
See, when I say the micro drainage, those drainage facilities are available in the core city, and you rightly say in the new extended areas we yet have to build those micro drainage systems. But whenever those drainage systems are developed, they are designed only for local precipitation. No amount of micro drainage can factor in the huge amount of floods that come from upstream. That kind of macro drainage planning has never happened. Forget about Chennai. There's hardly any city in India which has that kind of macro drainage planning done. Very little work has been done on actually planning at a macro level, on a regional level, the kind of drainage systems that are required for modern cities.
That's why I'm going to direct the question to you. Now when this entire debate has come up, we are talking about the fact that every time we are saying those areas which in fact are now flooded, where the areas which are growing tremendously, they were the areas where we said the boom is happening in real estate. Why did it all go boom exactly?
No, see, for Mr. Vikram Kapoor's question on the macro level drainage studies, I have seen studies happening. In 1976, we had a major flood. At that time, engineer Ramalingam committee was appointed. In CMDA, there was a major study on macro
What
level.
can we do now? Let's leave the past. We have made our mistakes, we know that. But what can we do now? Is it more regulation that we are looking at? Are there violations, or is the planning itself wrong that we are looking at areas where we should not have been looking at?
No, it's absolutely wrong to talk about regulations being responsible for this flooding. This is not
Or lack of regulation, I mean.
It is not because of the developments which have happened. It's because of probably inadequate drainage facilities at a macro level. Even those micro drainage systems have to be connected to a macro level plan. Otherwise, they remain local. They connect the water locally, and where do they discharge? And they will have to be collected and taken to the Buckingham canals and the sea. The sea tide has to be taken into account. There are a lot of things. See, unless macro
One is
level
of course
planning.
the technical aspects of the disaster itself, but now let's look at actually branch Chennai that we are talking about, the images of an inundated airport and images of an IT city, an IT corridor which went across the world, and that is something that's very damaging, isn't it, Mr. Aditya Krishna?
Yeah, I mean, when you see a flooded airport and a couple of 737 Boeings underwater, it's definitely not going to help Chennai. And I think that's what media has done for Chennai. And
Why blame the media? That's the messenger.
absolutely, but that's the reality.
I would like to come in. The same thing happened in Washington DC, in New York. A few years back, there was a huge snow, and then all airports were shut. Everything would come to a standstill. It happens everywhere. How quickly we bounce back. See, people will remember this. Yes, it's going to haunt them for some time, but we need to come out of this. This is not going to happen forever. And I don't think Chennai per se, all of us together and the government, we will all put our efforts together and to stop that it never happens again. We need to do something about this. We need to, when I talked about studies will have to be made, and then the drainage system has to be managed. We are going to get rains like this once in 10 years, and that water has to be used for 9 years of feeding Chennai with water. I think we
The
need
silver
to have
lining
plans.
perhaps was on the day that the deluge was happening, middle of the night, in the darkness of the night, somebody like Mr. Naveen was going there with his car, with a friend, and distributing food. He was not doing it with any government agency. Government must have been doing its work, but there were individuals like that who were also pitching in. But you're an industrialist, you run a firm here. What are your concerns now? Business is going to be hit.
Yeah, business is going to be hit, of course, but I think the major concern is what here is our appeal is to the government is rather providing so many freebies like laptops, cycles and all those things. We are more concerned, give us a better infrastructure, give us a better road, give us a better drainage system so that we are always ready to, counter such kind of, natural calamities. So I think this is more important thing. And of course, as far as the relief is concerned, we have seen there are a lot of people been, giving foods and all those stuff. But there has been a lot of wastages. As Sir told, there should be a coordination which is must between the government and a lot of NGOs, which could help a lot. So, your resources doesn't get wasted.
Yeah, resources shouldn't get wasted,
Yes,
and
yes.
at a very critical time we are talking about. In fact, we'll take a short break at this time and come back with, in fact, suggestions from everyone about what they think is the priority number one for Chennai. Once, of course, the relief and rescue is over, relief is still going on, and rehabilitation is, of course, the next step. But we discuss all that after a short break.